It was about a year ago when I made a lot of people upset over my Overwatch video. Who knew people could get so upset by telling them their game's dead? Okay, in hindsight, I should have expected it. Though I think there was a lot of confusion by people thinking I hated Overwatch.
If you like Overwatch, then that's fine. I mean, I myself don't even dislike the game.
And prior to the current title, I simply called it What Happened to Overwatch. Of course, that title is nowhere near juicy enough, so a quick adjustment and... oh, okay. I guess that works. Yep, welcome to YouTube, folks. A lot has changed since that video. We saw the release of Ashe, Baptiste, Sigma, Byleth. Are they better than past new characters? Sigma at least had the coolest reveal in all of Overwatch. Role queue was implemented, there was the Hong Kong controversy, and of course, Overwatch 2 was announced. If Team Fortress 2 is so good, then where's Team Fortress 2? So with all that happening, I figured what better time than to go and revisit the hellscape that is Overwatch. Do I agree with all the points in my old video? No! But I still do think some reign true, and others I simply explained myself badly. One thing people kept insinuating to me is that I had to be a top 500 player to have an opinion on this game. Now, I get it, my understanding of the game isn't as deep as say Seagull, who had his own take, but I'll be careful to consider the game through the eyes of a casual child who plays Widowmaker because she got big booby ×2, and the average sweaty competitive player desperately clinging onto his body pillow as he watches himself fall into the pits of Elo hell. The first thing I want to talk about is anti-fun. Anti-fun can mean a lot of things, but in this context, I'm referring to the frustration certain gameplay elements can cause. This can be stuff such as escort and follow missions, where you slowly trail behind the target, just staying out of their vision, and god damn it, can you move any faster? Stamina in certain games, while adding a element of skill, can still be considered anti-fun. Oh god, my sides. Even more extreme examples like mobile games making you wait to play the game. Thank you, Canadian Devil. There's a lot of ways to look at it, but of course, we're gonna look at this from the context of a multiplayer hero shooter. Why don't we start off with what is probably the best example of this, which would be Moira. Now, my feelings on Moira have been made pretty clear, but I'll slip my personal grudge aside to try and stay objective. When I talk about Moira and anti-fun, I of course refer to her primary fire, her E, and that god-awful design of- No, we're gonna stay objective. In an FPS game, aiming is meant to be a key skill to have, so introducing characters that don't require any real aiming is like having a plane in Forza. It makes no sense. It also doesn't help with how this thing has a longer reach than Melee Moth's grab. Moira is a top tier support, but even if she was bottom tier, her beam would still be frustrating beyond belief. This clip is probably my first time playing her in game, and what do you know, I already have gold kills and damage. Did we win that game? Well no, my game crashed somehow. I mean, it was probably because of all the cancer Moira was exerting. Her E can be annoying. However, I'm more accepting of it due to how her healing mechanics work, needing damage to recharge it. Her ultimate isn't too much of a problem. Sure, it's annoying, but positioned well and it's not really an issue. I would mention her shift as well, but it's fine. I'm putting personal grudge aside and focusing on the anti-fun aspect, because having an ability that can instantly redact poor positioning is fun, right guys? In my last video, I received comments such as this one.
He hates Moira because he is Genji, but he loves the broken Brigitte.
What am I doing? Okay, I will admit, I hadn't really played against Brigitte enough at the time, and in hindsight, I'd be perfectly happy if Blizzard removed her from the game. And yes, I do like playing Genji, but I do play other heroes, which doesn't stop Moira being pure anti-fun for me. Of course, they make it easier to deal with her, but it's frustrating nevertheless. This concept carries on to other characters. Winston is another example, where just like the pyro from Team Fortress 2, you hold left mouse 1 and walk forward. I understand, Winston takes a lot of game knowledge to be good with. You need to have godly positioning and know how to play around other abilities, while channeling your inner gorilla. but it still doesn't change the fact it's so anti-fun. If you're playing McCree and have to perfectly aim your shots, while this literal ape can just easily kill people if he gets within range. Why do you think Mei is hated so much? She isn't OP by any means, but to play against a Mei is pure frustration. Standing there as you slowly freeze to death before ending your life instantly. What dreams of chronic and sustained cruelty does it take? It's different for games such as League of Legends, as the topside view makes aiming less of a chore, so stuns don't feel too annoying, though they have their share of frustrating moments. But playing on the XYZ axis with such an emphasis on aiming feels like stuns have little to no place in the game, especially when some take very little effort to pull off. You can say I'm mad cause bad, which okay, fine. You're clearly a top 500 player if you feel the need to comment on how my gameplay is cringe. But a lot of these characters I've mentioned are widely despised, and this is for the very reason of anti-fun. Balancing was a point I had in my last video too, though I feel I was on the right area, but I had my facts pretty wrong, and many people got upset about that too. After looking into it a bit more, I realized what's the biggest problem with how the game's balanced, and to some extent how characters are designed. Right now, I feel the biggest problem with balancing is that some characters are just throw picks regardless of team compositions, while others are so good that your team will slap you for not picking them. For tanks, Orisa with her amazing shield potential and damage output, and Sigma with his damage and tankiness. Sure, it's matchup dependent, but 90% of the time they're go-tos, else you be flamed by this god-awful player base. For support, it's no secret that Moira is the obvious choice you need to go for. She has everything in her kit that support needs. Other choices like Baptiste and Ana are also great picks that can't be faulted, while others like Lucio, Mercy and Zen have their uses, but they're so outshined and are easily countered that it's not worth it. That brings us on to DPS, or as I like to call it, Doomfist and Reaper Boogaloo. Because other DPS with a higher skill ceiling are so undertuned compared to them. Soldier and Genji have both been butchered. I've seen a few Twitter posts complaining about how people locking in Genji is basically equated to throwing. Look how they massacred my boy. It really is a shame that these characters have just been pushed aside by either nerfs or the meta changing. It offers very little choice if you're trying your best to win, and punishes people who have dedicated time into these characters. Myself included. But of course, no character is ever useless. Because of a design choice I think is rather bad, or at least ruins the fun of Overwatch for me, which is how every hero is designed around counterpicking. It's no surprise that with a system where you can change your character anytime you please, counterpicking would be a big concept. An easy example would be Genji. Locking him into Mei, Winston, Zarya or Moira is as useful as making toast in a bathtub. But pit him against Widowmaker and you start to see him really shine. The part of constantly counterpicking I dislike is that you're forced to play what you need against what you want. Now this is obviously not a foreign concept in competitive games. You're always going to have to sacrifice your wants for the team's needs. But while in other games counterpicking is just another skill ceiling for higher elos, in Overwatch it's necessary in every skill bracket, unless the team is really just that bad. I like playing Genji, but obviously I can't play him when they have a counter, so maybe I'll play Pharah instead. I like her, but it turns out they have a Widowmaker, so that's not a good idea either. You see the problem here? You slowly whittle down to a pool of characters that are viable, that sometimes you may not enjoy playing any of them. This is all fine for a professional player who has sunk thousands of hours into the game and can play every character because he is the avatar, but for the more casual players who only have a few hours to play this game every day thanks to work, school, or making YouTube videos, we can't possibly learn every hero to an advanced level, so of course we'd want to stick to the ones we know. So you're forced into three options: play what you want and get flamed by your team, adapt and become a slave to the meta, or you could just simply play normals. Who am I kidding? You're getting flamed in there too. There's no real fix to this, and this isn't exactly going to be a problem for everyone. I just find it annoying that counterpicking isn't an extra layer of skill, it's a win requirement. In my last video, one of my main complaints was a lack of content, although there is a lack of game modes, which to its credit, Overwatch 2 looks to fix. But what I also mean is there isn't enough game features to diversify each game you play. All that can change is which map and what character you play. There's only 31 characters, 17 maps, and 4 changing objectives. There still isn't a whole lot of variety. If we compare this to other games, it does highlight how there's much more room for creativity. The easy example of course being Team Fortress 2. And I know, Overwatch bad, TF2 good has become as Reddit bait as Minecraft good, Fortnite bad, but hear me out. TF2 only has 9 classes. That's a very low number. And sure, the core game is designed well enough, but if the game was just that, it would become a snorefest very quickly, which is where custom classes come up. You want to be a spy and fake your death? Bam! You want to switch out your bad melee weapon for a stronger single fire crossbow? Bada boom! You want to eat a chocolate bar? Diabetes. No matter composition, map selection, there is always a way for the user to be in control and shake up the game in whatever way they want. However, a better example that's just as esport focused would be League of Legends. Overwatch is basically a MOBA hybrid anyways. The comparison is unfair with just how many champions there are in League, but even if they both had the same amount of heroes, League has so much more customization when you delve deep into the game. First off, you have 5 roles to play over 3, and unlike Overwatch where every character is tailored and forced to play a certain way, with League, you can play anyone in any role. Sure, it's not optimal, but mastering these weird playstyles like Teemo Jungle can be one of the many great things about the game. Then there's item builds. What do you build against this team comp? Runes. What will be the best rune page for this team? Skins. What skin can I flex the hardest with? There's the argument to be made that, bro, League is a upside-down MOBA game. These systems will just not work in the FPS game. And you're right. Huh? A complex item system would be too much to manage in a game with an XYZ axis. That's why you simplify it, just like Paladins! Oh god, this is a new low. Yes, I may hate high-res games for how they're so quick to copy any big game that's popular, but with Paladins, they got this small detail right. A very simple item system that'll offer you extra power in your defense, utility, healing, or offense. There are also talents that will completely redefine the skill of your character, changing the playstyle completely in some cases. All of these are simplified compared to a typical MOBA shop. They work to add a level of counterplay and freshness that will help to make each match feel different to the last you played. But I would be ignorant to ignore that Paladins has a draft and ban phase much like League's own. So a system such as this one is vital where you can't swap characters if you get counterpicked. You're forced to play around it and adapt to whatever item build you decide to go with. Whether a system like that could work in Overwatch is something we'll get into later. But as it stands, when even Call of Duty lets you customize a class with weapons, perks, grenades, and kill streaks, it says a lot about how restrictive Overwatch is. The last thing I want to talk about is role queue, and when I first heard about this, I was actually really excited. Gone are the days of having to pick a DPS character first, only for the entire team to also do so. Now, you just pick your role, hit play, and here we go! Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, at least you can play other things while waiting, but who really wants to play deathmatch before a ranked game? That sounds real nice and tilt-free. This is a system that works wonders in theory, but now that it has been put into practice, the queue times are monstrous for DPS. Which, yeah, I like playing DPS, okay? Sue me.
I thirst for the kills.
This system also doesn't help the staleness I mentioned earlier. Sure, League has the same thing, but League's only map that matters is literally designed for these 5 roles. Overwatch I feel should be allowed more flexibility. Maybe certain situations free tanks would be more ideal. Perhaps free TPS would be more ideal. Which actually brings me on to the point that kind of makes this section redundant. Blizzard are at least actively trying to fix these queue times. I've heard many things such as 1 support, 2 tank and 3 TPS systems. I've heard of 2 TPS, 2 support, 1 tank and 1 flex pick. who could alternate between DPS and tank. These are some decent ideas, and I feel it could be interesting for the meta. Whether it'll actually help queue timers? Only time will tell. Hell, maybe they'll fix the issue before I even release this video. But for now, it's a problem that really drives me from playing this game when it takes so long to get into a match. I could be playing Super Mario Bros. 2, come on. So those are what I think are the main issues for the game. Besides that, I believe the game is pretty fun for what it is. Just this summer I found myself really enjoying the game again with my group of friends. But these problems are important in my eyes, and the question is to be asked, can they be fixed? Now originally I was gonna go through some ways to fix these problems, but during the making of the video they came out with a developer update that actually fixes some major problems I brought up. Jeff goes in depth into these solutions in a recent developer update. They're adding an experimental card for balancing changes to be quickly added and tested, making the process of implementing these much faster than the current form of waiting for the changes to transfer from the public test realm. I think this solution is actually pretty good. It's frustrating when juicy changes are just waiting for you on the test server, but the eternity of waiting for them to drop into the main game is unbearable. Another fix is to try and combat the meta, which they're doing hero pools. I'm a bit conflicted with this one. In competitive games, they'd introduce a system that randomly selects a pool of heroes you can play. They're not set on whether this is weekly, daily, or even varies match to match. But the basic is that you'd be forced into other heroes if your mains were unavailable. See, I'd be a little more forgiving if this changed per match, but being locked out of characters I enjoy playing just sounds like a cheap way to fix the meta. I'm not quite sure if a ban system would work even better. I mean, after all, they could see the ban percents and take those into account when balancing. So, in Blizzard, or at least Jeff Kaplan's defense, seeing the dumpster fire that Warcraft 3 has been, they're actually looking to fix the biggest problems I have with the game. I understand that they can't exactly remove the anti-fun mechanics from the game, as it's honestly too late for that. And while adding something to differentiate matches like items could be nice, it's such a drastic change for a game so close to the ending point that is Overwatch 2's release. And so, the question is, did Overwatch really die? Well, if they're moving to fix these problems, I do have some hope for the game. Even though Overwatch 2 makes it obsolete, I believe if they're putting this much effort into the game still, as well as the Overwatch League, then the game is far from dead. Sure, it has heavily declined since launch, with many creators leaving for other spicy games, but at least it has a leg to stand on still. And even if the game truly does die, then let's hope Overwatch 2 can learn from its predecessor's mistakes and create an even better game. So, those are my updated thoughts on Overwatch. Any questions? Oh boy.